Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. Today I've got chapter 37 of Leviathan Awakes, the first book in the series, and we've got a Holden chapter, our innocent little boy. I'm going to apologise for missing last week's episode. I was moving flat. I went from the lows of West Hampstead to the highs of Belsize Park, and I basically just ran out of time. That was all. But the gang is still there, and if you listen to this years in the future, because I've asked you to, you won't even know. But anyway, the boys are still there. And they're on their way to Tycho Station. They're off to see Fred, and they're kind of finishing up their journey. In this chapter, they arrive there, and we kind of discuss with Fred, as you should do every day. We discuss with that guy kind of what's going on and what they're going to do, because he's effectively their patron and the guy that's kind of bankrolling them, providing them a sanctuary. But before that, we're still on the spaceship, and Alex has been running the Rocinante at 3/4 of a G. So when they're chilling out, they just knock the gravity back and everyone floats. Although this is still too heavy for Naomi and Miller, because obviously belters, they're used to even less or no gravity. And they're making a lasagna dish at the moment. So Naomi's blending together fake eggs and fake cheese. They're getting some dehydrated tomatoes and mushrooms and stuff like that. And they're using noodles instead of pasta. But they're all working together and kind of enjoying cooking. And they've all agreed as well to ignore the news. It's an unspoken mutual agreement. No one had any of the news channels on. Holden was sure everyone would rush back to check the current state of the war as soon as dinner was over. Also because they'll be strapped in their chairs, and what else are you going to do? Miller isn't helping out. He followed the crew into the kitchen and then sat uncomfortably, asking for something to do. Well, so he didn't actually do because he wasn't comfortable. As they're doing so, Alex is telling some jokes, making Naomi laugh, and she's kind of twisting her hair, which Holden hates, and he's feeling his belly tighten up. And when he does that, you can then see Miller staring at him out the corner of his eye, and Miller turns away and smiles. And then they're making more jokes, and he says he wondered if Naomi would ever be his friend again, because he's just a heartbroken little boy. They kind of keep going on. They talk about some cooking, about Holden's family life, because Holden had like 3 mothers and 5 fathers or something. But the mothers still did, well, one of the mums did most of the cooking, despite all that. They kind of, as they eat, the kind of temperature cools down a bit. Everyone's feel a bit more relaxed. Because obviously the context of this has just been a breakout between Earth and Mars, like the end of the world, end of the universe kind of stuff. And to kind of make them more relaxed, Amos starts burping, and burping even louder when people tell him to stop. And everyone tells some stories. And Miller tells a big story about taking down a black market cheese operation that ended with a gunfight in a brothel against 9 naked Australians. And Naomi goes, Naomi and the others are kind of like, oh shit, you were behind the cheese shortage? Because this cheese brothel, the cheese brothel, I suppose, led to a shortage in the belt of cheese. And they kind of discuss about how cheese is so expensive. It says real cheese only comes from Earth or Mars. And after they tack on shipping costs and the coalition's 50% increase in taxes, it costs more than fuel pellets. And a high school chemistry dropout can cook up drugs, but you just can't get cheese that way. And then Miller kind of explains that they ended up with 130 kilos of cheese. Street value alone would have probably brought someone their own ship. We wrote it up as a loss to spoilage. No one said a word as long as everyone went home with a brick. So they're dealing cheese out in the future, out in the asteroids. And they kind of talk about it more. They're saying how, so Amos and Holden in this situation are the 2 Earthers, and then Alex is from the belt. And Amos and Holden are saying just it's bizarre to kill people over cheese. They couldn't even imagine it. And you can't even understand it. And Naomi says that's why they killed Eros. As in, that's why the Inners did that. And Naomi says, Amos, you've flown with us for 25 years. You like us. You've learned the patois, kind of their version of speaking and their language. I bet you can order a beer and a hooker on any station in the belt. Heck, if you were a little taller and a lot skinnier, you could pass for one of us by now. Amos smiled, taking it as a compliment. But you still don't get us, Naomi said. Not really. No one who grew up with free air ever will. And that's why they can kill 1.5 million of us to figure out what their bug really does. Alex is like, you seriously think Inners would do that? Like, Inners view each other as out so different? And Miller's like, of course they do. We're too tall, too skinny, our heads look too big, and our joints too knobbly. Then one of my favourite little paragraphs in the book has got to be, Holden noticed Naomi glancing across the table at him, a speculative look on her face. I like your head, Holden thought at her, but the radiation hadn't given him hadn't given him telepathy either, because her expression didn't change. So our poor little Holden, he likes her weirdly shaped head. And they're kind of talking about how Belter language is impossible to understand. There's a bit where it's Naomi says tu and spin pow, shalau, two-way, akima and Edo. Apparently that means go spinward to the tube station, which will take you back to the docks. And even Miller saying that Havelock, who we met obviously at the start of the book, had been out in the belt for 2 years and couldn't understand any of it. And they kind of talk a bit more about the bug and various things about why they would have done it. And Naomi's big idea is they know from the weird guy who looked like a shark on the YouTube video from like the last couple chapters that that they think this protomolecule is a weapon sent from another galaxy to kind of colonize Earth. And they're saying, well, it must have the information to do what it needs to do on the protomolecule, but it doesn't have the processing power. The easiest way to get that processing in tiny machines is through distribution, and it's like the idea they need a lot of biomass to work with and see what it's made to do. So the protomolecule has a set of instructions, it needs more computing power, and for that it's going to eat a load of people, turn them into zombies and computer chips. And that's why Eros is sealed, lots of biomass and vacuum-sealed test tube. And also because everyone's fighting around at the time. If it does go wrong, all the weapons are already live. It's one of the ideas. And Amos is like, it's fucked up. How could they even find people to do that? Does Protomolecule just go around recruiting every potential Stalin and Jack the Ripper it runs across? I'll make sure to ask Mr. Dresden, Miller said, an unreadable expression on his face, when we finally meet. So Miller, obviously, everyone's chilling out. Miller's being autistic, non-verbal guy in the corner. Just tell one story and then goes ominous, because he's our boy. They kind of continue, and they're about to enter the docking station, like the docking scene, and Holden is in the brig, staring at the big box of protomolecule he's got locked away. And he's thinking about himself, oh god, I've just killed the station, if it leaks, whatever. Staring at the protomolecule, worrying about the end of the world, and then, as if on cue, Miller pulled himself through the deck hatch and kind of starts talking to him, which is just fantastic foreshadowing of staring at the protomolecule, worrying, and then Miller appears, which sets up for their kind of future relationship. And they're talking about the Nauvoo, which is the Mormon generation ship, which you see a lot of descriptions of as you go through the book. It's just like this massive ship hanging out, and they're always talking about how big it is. And it's like, this is take them to the stars, live out there. Miller's like a lonely death on a long trip to nowhere. And Holden's like, well, if the other aliens sent the protomolecule to eat us all, that's probably we're doing a better way of travelling through the stars. And they're kind of docking in, and as they're docking in, they're just chatting, kind of idling away the time, and they're talking about Fred, and Miller's like, is he OPA? Holden says, yeah, but I think maybe the real OPA, not the cowboys you want to shoot it out with the inners. We won't find a political solution to Protogen, you know, Miller said. Fred isn't just a politician, said Holden. So they finally get to our boy Fred. They see our boy sat behind his big wooden desk. So like a reminder as well about how important, or how impressive it is to have a wooden desk out in the belt if people are killing each other over cheese. And he's reading all the notes they'd written up. I think Holden wrote a big set of notes for Miller, and so did Naomi. She kind of chipped in. And they're reading it all, and Holden's got bored, so he starts counting ships outside. And again, he just discusses how big the Nauvoo is. And he was counting like a little shuttles, and watched one fly from Tycho Station to the Nauvoo. And as it kind of arrives there, it realises how big that station is. It says the Nauvoo suddenly shifted in Holden's mind from a large ship relatively nearby to a gigantic ship further away. Gave him a short rush of vertigo. And as they're hanging out, Miller and Holden are popping pills, because obviously they've been radiationed up to like their titties, and all their sperm's dead, all free-headed. So they have to pop 2 blue pills every few hours, otherwise they'll die like in a few days. And after Fred finishes reading, he massages his eyes and looks older to Holden. He says, I have to tell you, Jim, I have no idea what to make of this. And he's talking about they talk a bit about Naomi's idea about being processing power, and it's like, that's fucking mental. And that only makes sense to a psychopath. No one sane could do that. To which Miller replies, yep, first, and all respect here, don't kid yourself, genocide's old school. Second, the facts aren't in question. Protogen did infect Eros. Why doesn't actually matter. We need to stop them. Which is a pretty Miller line to say genocide's old school. He had a one earlier on that I think I skipped over. And Holden goes, yeah, they killed 1.5 million people. They wouldn't do that just over skeletal differences in slang. And Miller says, people have been getting tossed into ovens for less than that. People have been tossed into ovens ever since they invented them. If it makes you feel better, most of the belters think earthers and inners are squat and microcephalic, which is a small-headed disease, like you see in the museums when they pickle them in jars. So yeah, anyway, Miller's just loving the genocide chat, this chapter. And then they kind of chat for a bit more. Miller's like, let's go kill all these Protogen people. There's a load of belters here who want to shoot stuff. We'll take them on with the good guys. They've done it, that means they're the bad guys by default. And Fred's going, Holden, you have a load of protomolecule, where is it? And Holden goes, that's mine, no negotiations. And Miller's like, so Fred, why would I agree to that? Holden, I've booby-trapped it somewhere. Fred goes, no, you haven't. You're too honest. So Holden can't even lie to the people that know him well. And Holden kind of goes, because he is so honest, it works in his favour. You can't trust anyone with something this big. You already know what I'm going to do with it. That's why, until we can agree on something better, you're leaving it with me. Fred nodded. Yes, I guess I am. And the chapter ends. So, good one, that. Kind of a medium-sized one, I'd say. It's a good bit of genocide chat from Miller. You've always got to enjoy that. And you kind of see their evolving relationship between Miller and Holden, kind of, particularly Holden viewing Miller as like this omen of bad, like not critical thinking, but kind of pessimistic thinking and always being there. And kind of the dynamics in the group with Holden still pining for Naomi, but Naomi and the rest of the gang all get along very well. And Miller kind of weirdly fitting in, even though he is very different. And you also see the interaction with Fred, where Fred is that kind of powerful figure that can effectively demand the proto-molecule, or could, like, why would he agree to it, is the line he uses. And Holden's kind of innocence at kind of proving valuable in this scenario, where he's just innocence from demand to tell the truth does mean he can keep it, but also can be trusted to keep it by someone like Fred. So yeah, good chapter. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, and I hope you have a lovely week.